The transmission arrived on a Tuesday. It came simultaneously to every government, every military command, every orbital station humanity had ever built. The signal was clean, precise, and utterly contemptuous, the kind of message sent not to negotiate, but to notify. Ambassador Vrel of the Keth Dominion materialized on every screen across Earth, his four-jointed arms folded in the gesture that his species used when addressing livestock. Humanity, the translator rendered his clicks and hisses into flat English, the Galactic Dominion has deliberated. Your species has expanded beyond the boundary markers set at the Orion Accord. You have 48 of your hours to begin total disarmament and submit to planetary custodianship. Non-compliance will be met with orbital pacification. The transmission ended. In the United Earth Defense Command bunker beneath Colorado, General Marcus Webb leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling for a long moment. The room was dead silent. 40 officers, 12 analysts, and 3 heads of state waited for his reaction. Webb scratched his jaw. Then, slowly, he started to smile. "Pull up everything we have on Keth fleet formations," he said quietly. "And somebody get me Colonel Hayes." The Keth had done their research. They believed they had. They knew humanity's fleet count. They knew the yield of human nuclear warheads. They had observed human wars from a distance, brief, brutal, and eventually resolved, and concluded that humans were a moderately aggressive but ultimately manageable species. Dangerous like a cornered animal. Manageable with sufficient force projection. What the Keth had not accounted for was Colonel Dana Hayes. Hayes was 39 years old, the architect of Earth's outer defense doctrine, and the woman who had spent 11 years quietly preparing for exactly this scenario. Not because anyone told her to. Not because she had received intelligence suggesting a Dominion attack. But because Dana Hayes had read enough history to know that the galaxy was old, and old things tended to think young things were easy. She arrived at UEDC within 2 hours of the broadcast, dropped a data tablet on Webb's desk, and said 4 words. "I already planned this." Webb looked at the tablet. Then at her. "How long ago?" 7 years. He opened the file. His eyebrows rose slowly, the way they did when he was impressed and trying not to show it. "Dana," he said carefully, "this is insane." She sat down across from him and smiled the exact same smile he had smiled 30 minutes ago. "I know," she said. "That's why it works. Word travels fast among soldiers." By hour 6, every human fleet captain had been briefed. By hour 12, the disarmament negotiations the Keth expected to begin had not been initiated. Instead, humanity went quiet, the particular quiet of someone who has stopped panicking and started thinking. The Keth read this as despair. It was not despair. Aboard the EDS Resolute, Captain James Kowalski assembled his crew in the main bay and explained the plan in broad terms. When he finished, there was silence. Then Petty Officer Reyes, a 23-year-old from Albuquerque who had never seen actual combat, started laughing. Not nervous laughter. Real laughter. It spread through the bay like fire. Kowalski let it run for 10 seconds, then raised a hand. The bay went quiet again, but the grins stayed. Every single face in that bay was grinning, the wide, slightly feral grin of people who have been handed something that shouldn't work but absolutely will. "Stations," he said simply. They moved. The Keth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system precisely on schedule. 400 warships. The largest peacetime enforcement flotilla the Dominion had ever assembled because humanity was rated a Class 4 threat, and Class 4 threats occasionally needed an overwhelming show of force to comply. Ambassador Vrel expected to find a disarmed planet broadcasting surrender codes. Instead, his threat detection array lit up like a festival. Humanity had not gathered its fleet at Earth. It had scattered it, threaded it through asteroid belts, hidden vessels behind moons, positioned autonomous weapons platforms in the orbital debris fields that every species dismissed as navigation hazards. The Keth had studied human fleet counts and seen 200 warships. What they had not counted were the ships humanity had quietly built in the dark, registered as mining vessels, cargo haulers, and research platforms. There were 300 more. Vrel stared at his tactical display. The math was wrong. The math was deeply, catastrophically wrong. His communications officer turned slowly in his seat. "Ambassador," he said, "they're hailing us." The screen opened. General Marcus Webb sat calmly, hands folded on his desk, wearing the expression of a man who had been waiting patiently for company to arrive. "Ambassador," Webb said pleasantly, "we've reviewed your terms. We have a counteroffer." The counteroffer was not a list of demands. It was a demonstration. Hayes had calculated that the Keth, like most species that achieved galactic dominance through gradual accumulation of power, had never fought an enemy that genuinely did not care about the cost of winning. Dominion species negotiated. They retreated. They calculated acceptable losses and adjusted strategy accordingly. Humans had a different relationship with acceptable losses. In the 60 seconds following Webb's transmission, 17 simultaneous precision strikes hit Keth long-range communication arrays, not to destroy them, but to demonstrate that humanity knew exactly where they were and had chosen, deliberately, not to destroy them. Yet. Then Dana Hayes came on screen beside Webb. "You studied our wars," she said to Vrel. "You saw how they ended and you assumed that's how we fight, toward an ending." She paused. "We don't fight toward an ending, Ambassador. We fight until there's no one left to argue with us. We have always found that distinction clarifying." The Keth fleet did not fire. Vrel stared at the two humans on his screen, the general with his patient smile and the colonel with her absolute stillness, and for the first time in his diplomatic career, he experienced something his species called vreth. There was no perfect human translation. The closest approximation was the sudden understanding that you have made a serious miscalculation regarding the nature of a thing. He requested a recess. The negotiations took 11 days. Humanity kept its territory. Humanity kept its weapons. Humanity was reclassified in the Dominion Threat Registry from Class 4, manageable, to Class 9, a category previously reserved for phenomena like supernovae and rogue AI civilizations. The classification note read, in translated Keth, "Do not engage without full council approval and significant personal reflection on whether engagement is truly necessary." On the day the new accord was signed, Petty Officer Reyes from Albuquerque bought a round of drinks for his entire crew aboard the Resolute. Captain Kowalski raised his glass. "To the Keth," he said, "for reminding us we still know how." They drank. Outside the viewport, the stars looked exactly the same as they always had, ancient, indifferent, vast beyond calculation. Humanity looked back at them and grinned.